Since I'm on my way out, I'm trying to speed this up. Okay. I got to help out a little bit. All right, so we'll just go ahead and get into it because I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get through this. It's on like maybe 40 slides, so we should be good. All right, so understanding the whole book, part 27. So in this lesson, we will talk about two types of tabernacles that are made without hands. Okay, so we will first talk about the physical structure and then talk about the spiritual structure. So I put on here, we are gathering data for next week. So just understand that a lot of this information we're going over today is just an intro to what we're going to talk about next week. Okay? Keep that in mind. All right, so the rules. Please keep your mic muted except when asking and answering a question. Use the mic to speak. There's a feature in the room where you can raise your hand if you have a question. All questions must be on topic. You have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you pass your 60-second window, your mic will be muted for you. These rules are due to time and the recordings of the lessons. These are live teachings, must give the Moreh enough time to complete the lesson. Okay, remember, concerning the lesson. Remember we were talking about the image of Elohim last week, so I just want to do maybe a couple of slides to finish that portion of it, and then we're going to go into the next part. So in Colossians 1:14, it says, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, who is the image of the invisible Eloah, the firstborn of every creature, right? So we talked about last week about this image or this creation that Adam had an image, Yahuwah's image, and we got to figure out what image are we walking in, right? So I put this message as an allusion to Bereshit, or Genesis 1:2. Elohim created man in his own image, and the image Elohim, he created him. Also, you see this in 128. Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said for them to be fruitful and multiply, increase, and replenish or fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowls of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And it says this can be seen in Colossians chapter 1, verse 6 and verse 10, which comes unto you as it is in all the world and brings forth the fruit as also in you since the day you heard and knew the favor of Elohim truth. 10 says, that you might walk worthy of Yahuwah unto all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim. Right? So we're going to talk about this here as we go forward. All right. Of course, we went over this last week, 3:10, and have put on the new man. What was the new man we talked about last week? New man is the new Adam, the new Adam. You remember? Okay. This is going to be longer than I thought. Okay. Which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. So the point in Colossians 3:10 is that the believers who have begun to be identified with Mashiach's resurrection are those who have begun to be identified with the new creation in Mashiach. That is, they have put on the clothes of the new man, or the new Adam, or the last Adam, if you will, who is the resurrection of Mashiach. All right, knowledge. So Shaul exhorts them to stop being identified with the traits of the former life in the old man, and instead be characterized by those of the new life in the last Adam. Shaul exhorts them to stop being identified with the traits of the former life in the old man, and instead characterized by those in the new life of Adam. Everyone understands what I'm getting at? First one says what? Stop identifying with the former life. Second one says? Okay, great. Yep, it says the same thing. All right. Even the reference to being renewed to the true knowledge, 3:10, may echo the Genesis context. I just think everyone's just following along, okay? All right. And 3:10 may echo the Genesis context where knowledge was at the heart of the fall, right? In other words, there's a tree there of knowledge of good and evil, and then they had knowledge of what Yah told them to do. Those two things were given to them at that time. That's the challenge they had, was one supposed to either obey, or if they don't, the consequences was they failed, both according to knowledge of Elohim. And of course, Adam did not even acknowledge who his Elohim was when he didn't answer back. Yeah. So knowledge. The definition of knowledge means, or da'at means knowledge, the feminine form of yada. Now, yada is the masculine form, but it's, oh, let me use that. I got to turn. I look at everything as an exercise. All right. All right. So the knowledge, the da'at is the feminine form of for the word to know. Okay. So a couple of things here is, you will not know Yahuwah, or anyone for that matter, from another source. You know what I mean when I say that? Like, if you want to know about a particular person, you think you go to the other person to go find that person out? That person can tell you about that person, right, themselves, or how else? Okay, they're the original source. Go to them directly, or you can see their fruits. They're going to tell you who they are, be it the way that they speak or their actions. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right. Knowing that, says in the word or yada, in its root form there, means to seek after. Okay, to care for, obedience, messenger, abilities, discernment. So when I say seek after, what does that mean? Seek after. Dealing with knowledge. Seek after. She's outside. You want to go get your Isha? She's outside. Oh, she got the mic.
To search out, to find out more knowledge about that subject.
Okay. So you remember, we're trying to get the knowledge of Yah. So you first thing you're going to do is seek after him. Okay, there's a difference between, so to speak, da'at, which means I know he exists. I know who I've heard of him, right? But this one here is more of a knowledge of good and evil. You can't get that from Yah. You have to get it from the source, right? All right, care for. That means you care for what he says, what he tells you to do. Then you have to be obedient, and then you become his messenger. And next, you know, he starts giving you abilities. He gives you skills and things like that. And then after that, with those skills, you need some discernment with it. Okay, you need some discernment. They didn't have the discernment of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, let alone of Yah. So the adversary figured he would just tell them what that is. All right, so here's an example of something that is not good. So Leviticus 19:31 says, regard it not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after, and it says wizards, but in the Hebrew there it says Hayidonim, right? Hayidonim. So it means spirit of divination, soothsayers, to be defiled by them. I am Yahuwah Elohim. So he's saying, listen, regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards, to be defiled by them. So how can they defile you?
By misleading you. I mean, they're not going to give you his truth, so.
What if they do? Did the adversary do all that lying, or maybe a little smudge here, and 90% of it he was right? How does that work?
That's true too.
Is it by deceiving, Moreh? By deception, like painting the having a likeness, but
Okay, so think about it. Saul, look for one. Did they lie? Did that one lie to Saul? So what does it mean? It's defiling you. In other words, if you're seeking after Yah, you need to hear from him. Remember, I said you're not going to go find about Yah somewhere else in spirits and stuff. Is everyone with me so far? Okay, this is going to start off real slow.
and
I can tell you that right now. Yeah. Let me just hit the button. All right. So, okay, related to this, the observation that the second allusion of Bereshit Genesis 1:28 and Colossians bear fruit and increase, which we just read, right? Bear fruit and increase is directly appended by the knowledge of Elohim. So Genesis 1:28, just give you a visual. Okay, it says, and Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, be fruitful and increase and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion. Of course, 10 said that you might walk worthy of Yahuah unto pleasing, being fruitful in every good work and increase in where? In the knowledge of Yahuah. Why can't I get the knowledge from the tree of good and evil? It's got some good and some evil, but it's knowledge. Right? So everyone sees the issue here is not all knowledge is good knowledge. Not all knowledge he wants you to have. You know, only when you're able to discern, have wisdom with it, then, you know, you can utilize it, if you will. All right. So in this 128, it says, in part, a function and manner in which humanity was to reflect the Kodesh, or the set-apart image, Adam and his Isha, his wife's knowledge of Elohim also include remembering Elohim's word addressed to Adam in Genesis, or Bereshit 2:16 and 17, which Adam's wife failed to recall and which Adam failed to acknowledge. Okay, so they got the information, they knew it, but they chose not to apply it in their life. So how do you know and have knowledge of Yahuwah? How do you do that? How do you know? And
By his word.
Okay, by his word. Okay, sure. No problem. I hit the button. Okay, you must go beyond secular knowledge, such as visual, auditory perception, sensory perception. These are things that you can get. You can get that in a book, right? You can get that from friends. You can get that from some people writing things. So that's one way. Sure, you may be inquisitive about it or inquire about it, but from there, you start to do some seeking, right? You're seeking knowledge. It takes effort to gain specific knowledge, obedience, humility, discernment, humbleness, patience, love, long suffering, joy, etc. Anyone ever heard these words before? Okay. Understand the gifts that is given to help us to get to his truth. So his spirit was given for us to understand the knowledge of who? Well, who knows him? Saith the spirit, right? Not yet. So the speaker. So if the spirit knows Yahuwah, which says it does, then that's who you're going to seek the information from. But sometimes you might seek it from people that don't know him. Okay, and that becomes a problem, or it starts creating doctrine. All right. Spiritual circumcision made without hands. All right, so Colossians 2:11 goes on to say, in whom also you are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, and putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Mashiach. All right, so 11, the believers takes off the old clothing, is referred to as the body of the flesh, which was unclothed, if you will, in contrast to the new condition, which Shaul or Paul characterized as made without hands. So we do know that this is not talking about a physical circumcision, right? However, physical circumcision is still in play, right? So he's not referring to the physical right now, but Shaul viewed circumcision in the flesh to be pointing to a coming spiritual circumcision to be performed by the Mashiach on behalf of the eschatological Israel. So we'll talk about that next week. Circumcision, therefore, foreskin of your heart and be no more. Okay, so how does that work? What's stiff neck? Maybe I need to ask that. What's stiff neck?
Hard-headed.
Okay, hard-headed.
Disobedient.
Stubborn.
Okay. So the first part is telling you circumcise your heart. Everyone agrees, right? So when it says circumcise your heart, who's going to do that? Yah? Okay. So could you read Yah's going to do it, but first it starts with you, right? All right. 30 verse 6 says, and Yahuwah your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yahuwah Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and that you may live. So there's a part that you do, and there's a part that he will do. But he needs to see if you're even willing to do it. He'll meet you, and then from there he can take over if you allow. Now, some people want to share the same steering wheel. It's going to be rough. All right. Devarim 4:27 says, and Yahuwah shall scatter you among the nations, and you shall be left few in number among the heathens or the Gentiles or the nations where Yahuwah shall lead you. And there you shall serve Elohim, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But if from there you shall seek Yahuwah Elohim, you shall find him, if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. So my little note there is you must seek and want him first. Then comes the circumcision. So again, you're seeing what's happening is you're going to be scattered to the four corners of the earth. And then when you're there, he's waiting on something. Okay? So when you are in tribulation and all these things are come upon you, even in the latter days, if you turn to Yahuwah Elohim and shall be obedient unto his voice, for Yahuwah Elohim is a merciful Elohim, he will not forsake you, neither destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore unto them. So I added Jubilees here. It says, but after this, they will return to me in all uprightness and with all their heart and soul. So they're going to do that first. Okay. And I will cut off the foreskin of their heart and the foreskin of the heart of their descendants. And I shall create for them a chodesh, or a set apart spirit, and I shall purify them so that they will not turn away from following me from that day and forever. So again, there's a part that we have to do first. And sometimes we think that we'll just wait for him. There's nothing we can do. That's not a good attitude to have. He still wants to see the intent of your heart. Yes, sir.
So you're saying we have to show our willingness to change. This is the circumcision of our heart. When he says, don't do something, this is not for my people, leave that alone. Like the dietary laws, you come up on them, he said, don't do it. You're willing to do this? Yes. This is the Shabbat. Are you willing to keep it? Yes. And he's seeing if we're willing to keep his commandments before he brings us even further.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there any problem with I'm only doing these laws, statutes, commandments because I don't want to go to hell or damnation?
Oh yeah.
There's a problem. There's a problem with that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're only doing it because you know the end result is I'm going over here. But why can't your heart love and have a desire to do his work and enjoy what the benefits are going to be? So that's what I'm saying. He's going to check that part of your heart as well. I do the Shabbats. I do the commandments. I do the feast days. I love my neighbor as myself sometimes. Right? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Circumcision.
Is that almost like Moreh, when the rich man went to Yasha and said, all these things I've done for my youth, what more should I do? And he said is that kind of for him to sell all his goods and follow him, knowing that the man was rich? Is that the same heart that he was examining its fruit, I guess? Would that be the same?
Right. Mm-hmm. Same principle. Mm-hmm. So circumcision is a symbol of expressing how the seed of Abraham is a seed whose heart has been cut apart from unbelief and sin and has been regenerated. Got scriptures for that. Similar, Shaul compares this physical circumcision to a spiritual reality of the new covenantal relationship with Mashiach. When believers are identified by faith with Mashiach or his death, which cuts him off from the old world or the old you, the old Adam, and leads to his resurrection, they are subsequently raised to the new world or the new you. This spiritual circumcision is preparing you for two types of temples, okay? The one within you and the one that will be on the earth, and all these will be done or made without hands. So again, this here, we talk about that next week. Awesome. Remember, today we're just gathering. There we go. We're just gathering some information, gathering some data. All right. So the message of Stephonos. So, and Stephonos, full of faith and power, did great wonders and miracles among the people. Then there arose certain of the Beit Knesset, King James has synagogue, which is called the libertines, or the ones that think they have so much liberty, right? If you look at like freedom fighters, if you will, and Cyrenians and Alexandria and Cilicia and Asia. What were they doing? Disputing with Stephonos, right? They're disputing with him. Now, mind you, what does he have? Full of faith and power and great wonders, and so and these ones that are libertines, that liberal, they want to dispute with him. So he has the spirit, but I want to
challenge that.
Okay. So then it says, then the suborn, or they bribe some people. Oh, I'm sorry. Verse 6 says, and they were not able to resist this wisdom and the spirit by which he spoke. So if you understand this person has the spirit of the Most High, why would you want to do that? What's in you that you still want to challenge? So bad that it says, then they did what? Suborned or bribed or instigated men, which said, we have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moshe or Moses and against Eloah and against Elohim. So you're willing to lie because you can't.
Jealousy.
So here's this person has the Most High Spirit. You're jealous of what he has or have a problem with what he's saying. You're going to raise up false prophets, false witnesses, if you will, to make him look bad. But do you think you're making him look bad? Okay. Then it says, and they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes and came upon him and caught him and brought him to the council. I wonder if that council is righteous. So he says, and he set up false witnesses, which said, this man ceased not to speak blasphemous words against this Kodesh place and the law and the Torah. Okay? Same thing you see with the Mashiach. Same thing he went through, same thing Mashiach went through. And there arose certain of bear false witness against him, saying, he heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands. That's what I said. This is going to be very important for next week. How this made with hands and without hands work. So 14 says, for we have heard him say that this Yahushua of Nazareth shall destroy this place and have changed the customs which Moses delivered us. And all that sat in the council, looking steadfastly on him, saw his face as it had been the face of a malach, or a messenger. So they had the council looking like, man, but I could see the spirit on him. Is this really true? Right? Anyway, jump down to 7, verse 47. It says, he starts to give the story of what was happening. For our purpose, we're going to the temple, because this is what the portion is going to be talking about next week. It says, but Shlomo, or Solomon, built him an house. Howbeit the Most High dwells not in temple made with hands, as says the prophet. Heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool. What house will you build me, saith Yahuwah, or what is the place of my rest? How would you guys answer that? That's a question that was said. How would you guys answer that question? And I'll jump on that mic at once. So y'all had the same answer they had. Nothing. Oh, okay.
Well, the place of rest, as Hamashiach said, that we are the living temple. So I guess my answer would be, Father, I am your living temple.
Okay, that's your answer? Okay.
That's what Hamashiach said.
Well, I thank you for your answer. All right.
Can you rephrase this? Can you rephrase the question again, Moreh, please?
Okay. How would you answer this question? It says, heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool. What house will you build me, saith Yahuwah, or what is the place of my rest?
Is it like was saying, what could you give me? What possibly could you offer me? Like, is that
Oh, so you're asking the question with the question. I think I got it now.
Is it our bodies, our temple?
It's close. Yeah, close. Yeah.
Moreh, a house of prayer where we can give him his esteem and his honor, not only a physical building, but to use our bodies as a living sacrifice.
Okay. So you're saying that's how you would build
And
house.
spread the word and tell others of his of the good work.
Okay. All right. Like your answer too.
Your heart, your mind.
Your heart, your mind. Good. Love everybody's answers. Sounds good. One boy, you had something?
Ken Moreh, there's a place where it says that he dwells with one who has a humble heart and who trembles at his word.
Yes, it does say that. It says that, absolutely. And then the next question right after that, he says, how? He said, has not my hand made all these things? What is he talking about? All right. So again, we'll talk about that next week. Next week. I'm so
really, Moreh?
so tempted to say it now. Yes.
I said, really? Next week?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Next week. Yeah. Remember, the opening was, I'm just gathering information. I really appreciate you guys' answers. Just remember your answers. And if you don't, it's recorded. So you can go back to it, write it down, and see how it fares next week. Ken. You can get it pretty fast now.
Yahuah rest on Shabbat too?
Just out of curiosity, will we be able to maybe find an answer in Second Chronicles, like when because Solomon says like basically something's really similar to that?
Close.
Okay.
Yeah, it might get you somewhere in that area, but
okay.
Yeah, it's rough. Next week.
Okay.
Remember your answer because it's recorded. Just remember. All right. So you remember what's said here. Remember the question. This question comes from Isaiah. Isaiah says, thus saith Yahuwah, the heavens, my throne, the earth, my footstool. Where is the house that you build unto me? And where is the place of my rest? For all those has my hand made, and all those have been, says Yahuwah. But to this will I look poor, poor and of contrite spirit, and trembles at my word. Now, man, I just really want to tell y'all for some reason.
Come on.
Ken.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right. What does it mean, made without hands?
Yah only had to speak it into existence.
Okay. All right. Did you all remember this picture about maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago? Okay. All right. All right. So Mark 14:58 says, we heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands. Now, what was made with hands here? Okay. He says, and within 3 days, I will build another made without hands. What temple is that? Well, what is that?
Talking about his body.
She got to upgrade on her megabytes on her internet. Talk to her. Okay. So the first part is he's going to destroy the temple that was made with hands. Everyone says, hey, that's the physical temple. Then he says, in 3 days, I will build another made without hands. You're saying, which one is that one?
Mashiach's body.
His body made without hands? How does his body look? You talking about his physical body? In 3 days. What happened after 3 days?
Then he died and rose again.
Okay. Keep that in mind. John 2:19 says, and Yahushua answered and said to them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. If you destroy this body, he's going to raise up, you saying his body? Okay, all right, keep that in mind. Then said the Yahudim, 46 years was this temple in building, and you rear it up in 3 days? But he spoke of the temple of his body. When therefore he was risen from the dead, his Talmudim or his disciples remembered that he had said this unto them, and they believed the scriptures and the word which Yahusha had said. So now, if he's going to raise his body up in 3 days, we're talking about a physical body or a spiritual body? Which one are you talking about? I just want to ask.
It's a spiritual body.
You said spiritual body? And what you say?
It was a physical.
Physical.
Yeah.
See, you see why we gotta wait till next week? You see? Okay. No problem.
Moreh, could it be both?
Let me see what it says. This will be addressed next week. Just an intro to the lesson.
Why can't you go ahead and share? Because tomorrow's not promised to somebody.
You better have faith.
Thank you. Thank you, Abby.
If you have faith as a mustard seed, you'll be here. All right. It's really, really interesting to see how this. You're going to see a little bit of the answer in it anyway. So I didn't leave it totally clueless. You're going to see this portion. It's coming. All right. Summary of what we have thus far. Isaiah 66, 1 and 2 refers to the end time temple. Stephonos or Stephen quotes Isaiah 66, 1, right, in Acts 7:49 as part of his answer to the charge that was spoken against him concerning the Chodesh place and the Torah by saying that Yahusha will destroy this place and the altar and customs which Moses handed down. We saw Acts 6:13, 14. This charge parallels the charge against Yahusha, which we just read in Mark 14:58. We heard him say, I will destroy the sanctuary made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another made without hands. Hence, Stephonos' comment relates to Yahusha building the eschatological temple that began with his earthly ministry and especially his resurrection. So a lot of clues so far. Stephonos proclaimed that since Israel's physical temple was handmade, they could never be a permanent dwelling place for Elohim. It could never be a permanent place for Elohim. Okay? I believe his point of citing Isaiah 66:1 or Yeshayahu 66:1 is to demonstrate that just as Elohim's own hand created the first creation or world that had become tainted with idolatry, okay, so Elohim would create a new external creation in Jerusalem, not by human hands, but by his own hands. Not made with whose hands? Okay. So again, we'll talk about more of this next week. I just want you to see. How did you guys' answers fare to this so far? Pretty good? No one wants the mic no more?
Can, yes.
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, no, you did good. You did good. Hallelujah. All right. All right. So when you think about how Adam in Gan Eden or the Garden of Eden clothed himself, how he wanted to fix things, if you will, it did not meet the standard of Yahuwah. Remember, they ashamed, they sowed some fig leaves. Okay, so you had to bring Adam to his standard. So what Yahuwah is doing is testing our hearts. He knows if our desire is to be with him, that we have to have a new spirit and a new body. It can only be made by him. There's nothing you can do. Nothing. Okay? But we must show him how much we love him. Things made with hands, we need to produce good fruit. So the things that has been made with man's hands, we're trying to give him honor. We're trying to give it back to him, right? But we understand that we still have some stuff in us that's just not right. It just, like they said, his body can't inherit the kingdom. It's just not possible. It's got some stuff in it. But I've seen some reincarnate. Okay. All right. So the temple of Yahuwah encompassed the earth. So again, this will be next week. But the point here is, you know how we always talk about going to Jerusalem, going home, going to Israel. And as you think about it, it's like saying all the rest of the world, the Father's like, I don't want that. I only want Israel right here. And this is what this is about. No, there's more to the stories, which we'll talk about next week. Yirmiyahu 3:16 says, and when you have multiplied or increased and been fruitful in the land in those days, declares Yahuwah, they shall no more say, the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, it shall not come to mind, or be remembered or missed. It shall not be made again. So, first verse there, what do you see?
Slika Moreh, that no one will remember the Ark of the Covenant.
Yep, that's what it says. But what do you see by reading that? Okay.
We won't need it.
Okay, yep, I agree. It says that too. I'm with you. Oh.
I was just going to say, after you've done your part to kind of get your own heart and mind right with him, then you will have no need for it because you'll be walking in it.
Okay. Anyone else? You had some?
Yeah, it makes me think about when it says Yahuwah, it will no longer be Yahuwah brings you out of the land of Egypt, but when he brings you out of the four corners of the earth. So I think about that scripture. I think it's in Jeremiah, maybe wrong, but I think about that. So maybe, yeah, he's going to be known now as the one who is going to bring us from the four corners of the earth.
Okay.
So I think about that.
Okay. All right. So just keep in mind, I was hoping. Oh.
Does it have anything to do with like where it says like a covenant being made on better promises? So like, not that anything was wrong with the original covenant, but more so saying that there won't be a need for Ark of the Covenant. Because when I think of the Ark of the Covenant, I think more of like it being something made with physical hands. But again, future, if the things that are in the Ark of the Covenant are in us under that new and better promises, like where it says that the Ruach will be given to us and we will, walk in the spirit and no man will need to teach another and all of those things. So it just kind of makes me think of that.
Okay. All right. So a couple of things. Anyone else? Okay. Slika?
Yeah, I was wondering if it is because like this present day, people are always wondering where the Ark of the Covenant is. And
in Ethiopia.
So yes. But then I'm thinking maybe it's because if I'm not getting it wrong, the Ark of the Covenant held his presence, and since his presence will be in us and with us, maybe that's why I will not be missing or wondering where it is.
Okay, so
that's my 2P.
Okay, very, very close. Very, very close.
Slika Moreh, so it would be already in our hearts and in our minds, because he would have given us our hearts and our minds will be our hearts will be circumcised, and his word will be in our hearts and minds, and whatever we're thinking of or what have you, along with our new bodies, he will answer us without even, he will answer us right when we're asking him a question. So there will not even be a need for this because it would be already in us with our new hearts and our new minds and our new bodies.
Okay, very close, very close.
I'm looking at the Ark of the Covenant and what was inside the covenant.
Okay.
We had the laws, we had the manna he fed us with, and when you look at the laws and commandment within, where when he come, it should be already in us to be mindful of. We need to be mindful that he does have the last word in everything, but the covenant is still in us. We still learning of everything that he want us to learn. And so the covenant was just a piece that he used when he was in the wilderness to get the people follow the covenant, follow the ark, I'm going to be there. And that's what it is. He's still there for all of us to follow.
Okay. All right. So now, a couple of things as you see the part that's highlighted, right? When you have multiplied and be fruitful in the land, right? That's A. The second part I want you guys to see, though, it says the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah, it shall not come to mind, right? But we're going to see why it won't come to mind. Now, sure, we can say about the Father's presence being in us and things like that, but there's still a part you're missing. All right, so we'll keep going. So, verse 17 says, and at that time, Jerusalem or Jerusalem shall be called the throne of Yahuwah. And all nations shall gather to it, to the presence of Yahuwah in Jerusalem, and they shall no more stubbornly follow their own evil heart. In those days, Beit Yehuda, or the house of Yehuda, shall join Beit Yisrael, or Yisrael Israel, the house of Israel, and together they shall come from the land from the north to the land that I gave your fathers for a heritage. So my quick notes here is the language points to an end time prophecy. It has the same language that you read in Genesis 1:28. And Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said unto them, be fruitful and multiply or increase and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowls of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Now keep this in mind. This latter part, you're going to see it again. But notice the thing that he's sharing here started in the garden, and you're starting to see the fulfillment always is going to go back to the garden, always. So question was his presence in the garden?
Yes.
Okay, and his presence was in the ark?
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to see where that presence is going to be other than inside everybody. Everyone's been sharing. Everyone says the same thing with the exception of one part. Okay, so we'll see what that is. All right, so what did the Ark of the Covenant represent? Say one, say, I don't want to say it no more because
The Ark of the Covenant represented the word of the Most High present. It was a demonstration of his word and his promise that he made to the children of Israel.
Okay. Right.
His presence, his indwelling presence, or his presence in the earth. A set apart type of, it created where it was, I should say, it created an atmosphere of being set apart so his presence could dwell there.
Okay. All right. So let's read something. Oh, you need the mic.
I don't know. I might be off with this, but I'm just wondering if it could also kind of represent like a kingdom. It kind of seems like a throne, like how they would carry a king on a like a throne. So is that kind of like
that's
showing
right.
Yahuwah sitting on the throne as being the king in the kingdom?
Sure. Yeah, it's not bad.
Sleek out, Moreh. I just want to land back on that because I was actually about to say that it also represented his throne because it says that that's the seat of Yahuwah. So
I want you guys, if you're not catching on yet, something's going to happen in Jerusalem that if you understand in the small temple what the ark represented in the small temple or sanctuary, watch what happens when Jerusalem becomes a sanctuary. That's where you're going to start to see where this thing starts to unfold. All right.
Can I take one more stab at it, Moreh? Could it be we won't remember that Ark of the Covenant anymore because it would be his presence. He would take the place of the Ark of the Covenant. So why would we remember such a thing when he would be there? He would be the dwelling here with us.
Okay. All right. So 1 Chronicles 28:2 says, then David, or the king stood up upon his feet and said, "Hear me, my brethren and my people. As for me, I had in my heart to build a house of rest for the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, and for the footstool of our Elohim, and made ready for the building." Psalm says, "We will go into his tabernacle, we will worship at his footstool." Now you got to think about something. If this footstool that he's referring to here, as this presence get bigger in Jerusalem, and you're reading Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 15, it says, till Mashiach makes all his enemies a footstool, you're going to see how this will work, as a whole on the whole earth. Okay, but for right now, this future temple will not be like Israel's prior temple. The Ark of the Covenant will not exist in the renovated Jerusalem. Rather, Yahuwah's presence alone will replace the Ark. Okay? All right. So the throne of Yahuwah. So the future Jerusalem in the entirety will be called the throne of Yahuwah. This city will have become the throne, and there will be no further need for an ark representing the throne. Okay, so in Ezekiel or Ezekiel 40, chapters 40 through chapter 48. So we're not, of course, we weren't going to go through all of those. Mentions the ark is absent in those chapters. You ever notice when this next temple in Ezekiel is being built, you don't hear anything of an ark. So you got to figure out, why is there no mention of an ark in Ezekiel at all when they start the rebuilding of this tabernacle or temple. So anyway, the vision climaxed with the statement that the New Jerusalem will be called Yahuwah is there, which is 48:35. It says, "The circumference of the city shall be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that time on shall be Yahuwah is there." Okay. So a parallel to the city you will find in Isaiah chapter 4, verse 5 and 6. It says, "And Yahuwah shall create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion, and upon every assemblies, a cloud and a smoke by day, shining a flame and fire by night. For upon all the esteem of Chabod shall be a defense. And there shall be a tabernacle," but that word tabernacle is the word sukkah. So it'll be a sukkah for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and for a place of refuge, and for a covert from storms and from rain. Okay, so again, we'll see most of this stuff next week. So the entire area of Jerusalem is what I'm getting at. So that little thing that was made during the time of Moses, then Solomon makes it even bigger, and then all those are made by man's hands. Then all of a sudden, Yah says, "I got to make something that's going to be 10 times better than what you could ever make him." So he's asking the question, like, what can you make me that my presence can really dwell in these things? So it's something that he has to do so that he can dwell there, is what you're going to see. All right. So anyway, Yeshayahu states that at the end time, the whole area of Zion shall become a sanctuary. Yahuwah will create over the whole area of Mount Zion, and over her assemblies a cloud by day, even smoke, and the brightness of flaming fire by night. For over all the Chabod scene will be a canopy. Yeshayahu 4 refers to the entire area of Jerusalem becoming a tabernacle. Fire, cloud, which expression of Elohim's presence, both at Sinai, which we have seen, and you read that in Numbers chapter 9, verse 15 and 16. And then Baruch says, "For he showed me many warnings together with the ways of the law and the end of time, as also to you." And then further also the likeness of Sion, with it measurements, which was to be made after the likeness of the present sanctuary. Okay, so again, you're going to start to see that this sanctuary is going to be huge. So it's going to be the, if you will, Jerusalem is going to be the Kadosh Kadoshim, right? It's going to be the most set apart place. And then from there, there's going to be some outer courts. And then from there, the whole earth. And you're going to see, well, that's why all nations are going to be coming to code, I would say, to tabernacle to come see the Most High. You're going to see why that's necessary. Hopefully next week.
Excuse me, Moreh. So is this the same measurements and the same that we hear about in Revelation where John is speaking of? Like, is that why in the prayer it says, "Thy kingdom come"? Is it like the same thing that's in Shamayim would be here? Would that be the same?
So that would be a little different. But yeah, that'd be just a little different. Remember, the parts I'm talking about now is things there what you're going to read in a minute about animals are going to be in. Remember, I said just take note. There are certain things that are going to be in this particular kingdom. Okay. Zechariah 1:16 says, "Therefore, thus saith Yahuwah, I have returned to Jerusalem with mercy. My house shall be built in it, declareth Yahuwah Sebaot. And the measuring line shall be stretched out over Jerusalem." Okay, Zechariah 1:16 predicts that Elohim will return to Jerusalem and that his house will be built in it. Okay, and a measuring line will be stretched over Jerusalem. The stretching out of the measuring line after the mention of the building of the temple refers most likely to construction of the temple on a bigger scale than the first temple. Remember, if you see the how big the temple was, this one here is huge. I mean, really huge. All right. So anyway, the entire site of latter day Jerusalem fits well with Ezekiel chapter 40-46, where the Malach is repeatedly measuring the dimensions of the temple, which we read here in Zechariah 2:1-4. He lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then said I, where go you? And he said unto me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof, and what is the length thereof. And said unto him, run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls. And then it says, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. So this next one that's going to happen, it's going to have human and animals in it. Everyone with me so far? All right. So now brings me to, and I said the borders thereof of the old Jerusalem. I started to put the dimensions up there, but I think it'll be way too much. Will be expanded to make room for the many people and their possessions that will dwell in it in the future. So why will there be no walls around Jerusalem?
His presence.
He says presence. So it's no.
Slika.
Yeah.
Isn't that because no evil thing will be allowed to enter? There won't be any need for walls.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? You good? Okay.
How about no more sin? So we don't need a separation.
Okay. So let's read and see what it says. It says, for I say Yahuwah will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the esteem in the midst of her. In that day shall be upon the bells of the horses. This is Zechariah 14:20. Kodesh le Yahuwah, set apart to Yahuwah, and the pots in the Yahuwah's house shall be like the bowl before the altar, or the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Yehuda shall be Kodesh le Yahuwah Sibao. It shall be set apart to Yahuwah, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them seat therein, and in that day shall be no more the Canaanian or the Canaanites in the house of Yahuwah Sebaot. All right, so her walls is going to be walls of fire, which is around about, which is going to be Yahuwah's esteem, right? So having that, you start to see that, wow, this thing is actually going to turn out to be a huge sanctuary. All of Jerusalem is going to become a huge sanctuary, since his presence is going to be there, and he's a consuming fire, if you will. You can imagine how this Jerusalem is going to look. All right, so keep that in mind. The enlargement of Jerusalem refers to the entirety as a Kodesh sanctuary in which Elohim's flaming esteem will reside. Quite like Yirmiyahu 3:16-17, the Shekinah, or his presence of Elohim, formerly set apart in the old Kadosh Kadashim, will burst forth from the heavenly sanctuary and encompass the entire future New Jerusalem. Okay, Zechariah 14:20-21 also suggests that the Chodesh, or the set apart, which was formerly restricted to the temple will spread throughout the future New Jerusalem and Yehuda. Okay, so it's really going to be huge. So if knowing how this is all going to look, so the whole point, let me just tell you up front for next week, is how all this is going to look. You got to figure out how do you play and how you measure in this. If his presence is going to be there, if all this is supposed to happen, and we're some unclean beings, how could we be inside this Jerusalem? So that means if this is going to be made without hands, we have to mirror that. I got to put a new spirit in you. And so we're going to see how all that stuff works next week. Okay. The book of Daniel. You saw till the stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and breaks them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them, and that the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Right? Now, 44 says, and in that day these kings shall the Elah, or Most High, of heaven, set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So remember that image that was made, and it was representing different nations. So you can imagine these nations now then spread throughout all the world. So he's letting you know that this stone was cut out without hands, is going to wind up subduing the whole nation. Okay, is everyone with me so far? Okay, if not, we'll see it next week. 38 says, and whatsoever the children of men dwell, the beast of the field, you hear it again, and the fowls of the heavens have given into your hands, and made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. Now, tell me about this part here. What do you get out of this last part, verse 38? Nothing? Just it's a good read. All right. So I want you to get a couple.
Now, Sleek, Moreh.
Yeah.
You asked, what do we get out of verse 38? We're going to be, from what I'm reading here, is like we're going to be put back in our rightful state to, like Adam was, to rule over, like the Father intended us to rule over the earth.
Okay, good. So you see that the same thing that was in Genesis about having dominion over all the animals and everything, it's going to happen again. This time it's going to happen because he's going to be there. Same thing, I can't say Yahweh was not there in the garden, but what Adam didn't do, the new Adams, if you will do. Okay? With a little bit of help. All right, so summary what we had thus far. Daniel chapter 2 sees that Elah's kingdom will permeate the entire earth. The stone that became a great mountain filled the whole earth. The notion of Elah's kingdom filling the whole earth appears to echo Genesis 1:26, 28, where Elah's commissioned Adam to fill the earth and to rule over all the earth. Further evidence in Daniel chapter 2, allusions into 128 appears in Daniel 2:38. That's why we put that in there, where Daniel says that Allah has given Babylon king to rule over the birds of the sky and the flesh of the sea. Yeshayahu also links this to the great mountain that Daniel speaks about. And we've already read before, but I just put on here again about what's going to happen in this latter days. We already read Isaiah 2 and 3, but we'll read it again, no problems. And it shall come to pass in the last days, the mountain of Yahuwah's house shall be established in the top of the mountain, and shall be exalted above all the hills, and all the nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come you, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Elohim, of Yaakov, of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion, not Zion, Okay. Shall go forth the Torah and the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. Now, again, you're going to notice that a lot of places talks about how all nations are going to be coming to Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is going to be pretty big. Okay. The borders are going to be pretty good. All right, Zion, this is just for you guys, just other words dealing with the word Zion. Because since I knew the Zaken was going to share a little bit about Zion, I feel like I'll go ahead and put this up there for you guys. All right, so understand, we don't have to read them, it's for you, but just to share with you that the word Zion is mountain, hill, set apart place, and even his people. That's what this is about, okay? Okay. All right, so why go to this mountain? Now, I want you to think about this mountain here first. In Ezekiel 28:13, this is the LXA or Septuagint version of it. It says, you have been Eden Gun Elohim, or in the Garden of Elohim, or Eden of Garden of Elohim, you have bound upon you every precious stone, the sardis, the topaz, the emerald, the carbuncle, sapphire, jasper, silver, gold, the agate, the amethyst, the chrysolite, the beryl, the onyx, and you have filled your treasures and your stones in you with gold. Of course, this is a little bit different than the Masoretic text. 14 says, from the day that you was created, you was with the cherub, or the cherub, or the cherub. I set you on the Kodesh mountain of Elohim. You was in the midst of the stone of fire. Verse 16 says, of the abundance of your merchandise, you have filled your storehouse with iniquity and have sinned. Therefore, you have been cast down, wounded from the mountain of Elohim, and the cherub has brought you out of the midst of the stone of fire. And 18 says, you have defiled your, what did he defile? Mikdashecha. Now, question is, it says that in the what? Syntax in it, the grammar in this. Sanctuaries, it's in the plural. Why is this in the plural? So why is Mikdashecha in the plural? Anyone ever thought about that?
Because of the fact.
Because that's many times. It's many.
Oh, that's a good guess. That's a good guess.
Because of the fact that, like I said, Hamashiach said that we are supposed to be that temple. We are supposed to be that sanctuary.
Yes,
so
yes.
We are many.
Yes, good guess. Good, good. Good, good. Hallelujah. All right. So he defiled your sanctuaries by the multitudes of your iniquities, by the iniquity of your trade. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of you. It shall devour you, and I will bring you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold you. Don't worry, I'm going to answer the question in just a minute. All right. So 28, 13, 14, and 18 refers to Eden Gan Elohim, or the Garden of Elohim. It says the Kodesh mountain of Elohim also refers to its containing sanctuaries, plural, right? Jubilees. For Yahuwah has 4 sacred places upon the earth: the Gan Eden, and the mountain of the east, and the mountain which you are upon today, Mount Sinai, and Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, which will be sanctified and purified in a new creation for the sanctification of the earth. On account of the earth will be purified or sanctified from all sin and from pollution throughout the eternal generation. Okay, so now why do you think there's plural sanctuaries?
Because the Most High had places set up where we can go to worship him, but in all those places he had set up, we defiled them.
All right, so he has multiple sanctuaries, multiple mountains.
I digress.
Oh, okay. All right, so both Isaiah chapter 2 and 3 and Micah 4, 1 and 2 portrays a mountain on which the temple sits as growing. It's growing. It will be raised above the hills. While it is not as explicit as Daniel's rock that becomes a mountain and fills the earth, it's still going to be growing. So we're going to see how that works next week. And the last part we got is Enoch. I want you guys to hear this story and tell me what you think about this story, and then we'll finish up next week on this part. And he said unto me, Hanuk or Enoch, what is it that you are asking me concerning the fragrance of this tree, and you are so inquisitive about? At that moment, I answered, saying, I am desirous of knowing everything, but especially about this thing. He answered, saying, this tall mountain, which you saw, whose summit resembles the throne of Elohim, is indeed his throne, on which the Chodesh and great Yahuwah of Chabod or esteem, the eternal king, will sit when he descends to visit the earth with goodness. And as for this fragrant tree, not a single human being has the authority to touch it until the great judgment, when he shall take vengeance on all and conclude everything forever. This is for the righteous and the pious. The elect will be presented with its fruit for life. For says he will plant it in the direction of the northeast upon the Chodesh place, in the direction of the house of Yahuwah, the eternal king. Then they shall be glad and rejoice in gladness, and they shall enter into the Chodesh, or the set apart place, and the fragrance shall penetrate their bones. Long life will they live on earth, such as your father lived in their days. At the moment I bless the Elohim of esteem, or Chabod, the eternal king, for he has prepared such things for the righteous people as he had created them and given it to them. So you can imagine, Yah made so much stuff for his people. He can't wait for this day where we all can partake of this, all of his goodness. 26:1 says, and from there I went into the center of the earth, and I saw a blessed place, shaded with branches which live and bloom from a tree that was cut. And there I saw a Chodesh mountain. Underneath the mountain, in the direction of the east, there was a stream which was flowing in the direction of the north. And I saw in a second direction another mountain, which was higher than the former. Between them was a deep and narrow valley. In the direction of the latter mountain ran a stream. And in the direction of the west, from this one, there was yet another mountain, and smaller than it and not so high, with a valley under it, and between them besides another valley, which is deep and dry. The valley were narrow, formed of hard rock, and no tree grew on them. And I marvel at the mountains, and I marvel at the valleys. I marvel very deeply. At the moment I said, for what purpose does this blessed land, entirely filled with trees, have in its midst this accursed valley? Then Uriel, one of the Chodesh Melachims, or set apart messengers, who was with me, answered me and said to me, this accursed valley is for those accursed forever. Here will gather together all those accursed ones, those who speak with their mouth unbecoming words against Yahuwah, and utter hard words concerning his esteem. Here shall they be gathered together, and here shall be their judgment in the last days. There will be upon them the spectacle of the righteous judgment in the presence of the righteous forever. The merciful will bless Yahuwah of esteem, or Chabod, the eternal king, all the day. In the days of the judgment of the accursed, the merciful shall bless him for the mercy which he had bestowed upon them. At that moment I blessed Yahuwah of esteem, or Chabod, and gave him the praise that befits his esteem. From there, I went over the summit of the mountains, far towards the east of the earth. I then passed over the Throne Sea, went far from it, and passed over the head of the Malach Zutuel. And I came to the Garden of Righteousness. And I saw beyond these trees many other large ones growing there, their fragrance sweet, large ones, which much elegance and esteem, or Chabod, and the tree of wisdom, of which one eats and knows great wisdom, was among them. It looked like the color of a carob tree, like very green leafy tree. And you ever seen that tree? Everyone's familiar with that tree? Got pods on it. Look like, okay, anyway. Its fruit like very beautiful grapes, okay? Grape clusters, and fragrance of this tree traveled and reaches afar. And I said, this tree is beautiful, and its appearance beautiful and pleasant. Then the Hamelech HaKodesh Raphael, who was with me, responded to me and said, this very thing is the tree of wisdom from which your old father and aged mother, they who are your precursors, ate and came to know wisdom, and consequently their eyes were opened, and they realized that they were naked, and so they were expelled from the garden. So, question is, in that story, what did you guys get out of that? I know it was a lot, maybe 3 slides or so.
It sounded like it was explaining what the garden looked like in the beginning, and in the midst of him seeing how beautiful it was, he came across the tree of knowledge, of which Adam and Hawa partook of. And he also, I'm getting out of it, he also seen how it could be alluring because it had such a fragrance to it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Moreh.
Ken.
It seems to me that it's showing what it's going to look like. It's like what we're going back to, what we're going to see, because it was explaining that that's where that place where the unrighteous is going to be. So that's something that's already been created for them. That's already set up for them to be that place of judgment. And then the next place he went to was the place that seemingly describes what the garden is.
Okay, good. Anyone else?
Moreh, I concur with that, because everything is leading back to the garden. Everything is going to be under the second Adam's rule, HaMashiach Yahusha. And that's also, he was describing where Abba Yahuwah is going to be ruling when it's all said and done. When he mentioned the beautiful tree, and also mentioned where Abba Yahuwah was going to be ruling on the earth, and also the garden, and seeing that everything is going back. So it's just a preview of where everything is going to be.
Okay, so I just want us to see here that in Enoch's vision, he saw mountains. Okay, multiple mountains. And these mountains were beautiful mountains. Everywhere he went, there was colors. You can imagine precious stone. That's why I wanted to see the one in Ezekiel 28. So you can imagine he has multiple mountains that we can't even see right now. Okay, and then on top of that, when he comes down to purify everything and bring things back into alignment, all of what's called Jerusalem and all that he gave for the seed of Abraham is going to be their inheritance. This is going to be their area. And then those that do not, I can't say don't have an inheritance, but those that are going to, these other nations are going to come every year to this place and see the actual king of all the earth. And they're going to be able to look upon and see how awesome Yahuwah is. If they don't, he said, remember seeing Zechariah, there's going to be no rain in their area and things like that. But the point is that at some point, the whole earth is going to be set apart. It's going to start in the most set apart place, and then it's going to work its way even to the outer courts. Outer courts is going to be representation of the 4 corners of the earth, which ultimately means the whole earth, he said, he is created to be inhabited, right? So we'll see that more, not next week, but a couple of weeks after that. Or I can probably email it to the Morehs, and they can take over from there. All right.
Moreh.
Yeah.
Could it also tie in reference to the story about the king who was mean, and he wound up going to Sheol, and he wanted a drink of water. I can't remember the passage, all the names and details, but it was a gorge between them, And he even said, if I wanted to, give you water, I couldn't, because there's such a great separation.
Yes.
And I'm just asking because that's what came to mind also when the way you mentioned. Okay, I'm glad you understand, sir.
Sikai, he's referencing to the beggar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're referencing to the beggar. Yeah, and you're saying that when the king died, the beggar went to heaven, and so that would be really good.
Yeah,
I just had to concur with that. Yeah, and there was a great gulf, and he couldn't even tell him. Yeah, yes, absolutely, that would be wonderful.
Wow. Oh yeah. Make sure y'all exchange numbers. All right.
Come on. No.
All right.
Funny, Moreh.
I got to do the last part, and then I'll take the questions. This is the last slide anyway. So the stone, Daniel chapter 2, Daniel 2:34, where you saw till the stone which cut out with hands, right? This is associated with the temple-like image, alluding to Psalms 118:22. And I gave you these scriptures for you guys to study for next week's lesson. The stone that the builder rejected has become the cornerstone. The stone which the builder rejected, this became the chief cornerstone, i.e. the temple. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken into pieces, but on whomsoever it falls, it will scatter him like dust. You got your references. Also, another link to the stone in Daniel 2, not made with hands, refers to the new end-time temple as not made with hands. Okay, and in 2 Corinthians 5:1, Hebrews 9:11, so on. We'll be talking about those next week. So I just put on it. We'll explore these elements at that point in time, but just something for you guys to get started for next week, because there's a lot to cover next week. All right, so now, any questions?